trauma, I have no words for the pain. I have no words for the processing of the pain. I can't look at it, although it comes back to me again and again. I have no words.
Trying to plaster up mortar with words and realizing that it is insufficient, it is incapable of solving the task. The trauma is not encoded into the language, but it's encoded into the body. It can emerge from the body in language, but it is in the nervous system that the trauma is written. How to unwrite that trauma.
How to plaster up where words are not enough. How to enter into the body and rediscover what has been done and the response to it. It's the response that makes the traumatic experience.
Read the cover of the body and read the deep code of the body, the deep interiority, which, when the vessel has been broken, seeps out into the world and can no longer be contained by the vessel. How to reconstruct the vessel, plank by plank, tear out the rotting planks, tear out the waterlogged planks, and replace them with fresh wood.
What is the vessel? What is the rotten? It's not mine. It hasn't been mine. It has been what has been done in the space between us. I am not the bearer of it. I am not the sufferer, the soul sufferer, because it's in the space in between us. The vessel is the space in between.
Holding the space between us. Holding that communal vessel in which all vessels can float. Evolutionary trauma activated by an experience in the present. Forgetting the accumulation of trauma and forgetting the deep evolutionary trauma, returning to a peace.
Forgetting the evolutionary trauma of thousands of years of humanity, of what we have done to each other, of what we have done to the animals and plants in order to become the species that we are right now. How painful must that have been?
Trauma as something that can be triggered. Evolutionary trauma that isn't activated at birth, but just with a single trigger can reactivate it. Perpetually we reactivate the trauma. How can we silence the triggers?
Is there a world without triggers? Is there a world without noise? How can we be together in a way that this is shouldered collectively? How can we acknowledge there is brokenness in the space between all of us?
We need the creation of new communal vessels where people can commune together and release that trauma, release the trauma into the collective space. Physical spaces where people know that they can receive and give care, initiate people into an order of caregiving, which is open, flexible, free, and communal.
The trauma of the commons of the trauma, the commons of the brokenness, the common brokenness, the brokenness in between all of us in the system that we finally acknowledge, that we tend, that we start tending and caregiving and giving attention to what has been broken, not in order to fix it, but in order to be with it in a different way.
The self can't be fixed, but the self can be released. It is a soul that has been locked inside of a body, trapped inside of an armor. Release the armor and the soul can be set free to wander wherever it wants, to wander within this body or within another or in between bodies.
What is this trap of a body? Where does the body start and where does it end? Where does the tree start and where does it end? Where is the difference between the root system and the water that the roots are drinking and the nourishment that the roots need? Where is the border between you and me and the trauma between us?
All is one. And yet there is the pretense that all is under one, the monotheistic myth. As soon as one part is below the totality, then there is a split.
And there is the totality that we have to acknowledge. We have to acknowledge the borders that are imposed to us humans in order to coexist with everything that is coexisting with us. If we do not respect the borders, then there is brokenness in the interrelational space between our species and all the others. How can we heal that brokenness in between that?
Take down the monotheistic, the mono-idolatry that perpetuates the individual, that perpetuates the supremacy of the human species. Forget that false god and create a new way of understanding distributed consciousness.
The monotheistic is the one that we're looking upon and that we're divided from. We are not God. Are we not? And if this separation and that first pain is there, that we are not what we thought we are, how can we find the space that is assigned for us in the overarching pattern?
What divinity would an unbroken child possess? A child who has not had their evolutionary trauma activated, who has not been made into a part by a monotheistic system. What potential would lie within that sacred vessel?
The potential of the sacred vessel. Is there a world where we cannot be hurt? How can this pain and that hurting become part of a life where we do not have to respond in a way that we deny that it happened or that we stay broken inside and outside of us in the space between us forever?
Heal quickly. Take time to pause. the infinite grind of the great gears. Don't give a millisecond to breathe, to take the breath we need to recover from the wounds. And beyond that, the gears themselves crush us into dust, smaller and smaller parts over and over again. What hope for healing is there?
Heal quickly and fractal the trauma into the collective space, into the interrelational space where it is shouldered by many, shouldered by the pluriverse and the multiverse, where we don't have to carry that alone as an individual, because it derived from the multiplicity and it derived from the interrelations, and that is the space where we can shoulder it. Heal quickly together.
Distribute the trauma equally. Allow all to bear a part of the burden, and all will be able to bear it. Right now, some people hoard bliss and others suffer under the great weight of trauma. A forgetting and a forgiving, a sharing and a communing.
Redistribution of the burden. Redistribution. Coming back to that again and again, becoming aware that there is inequality of the burden onto our shoulders, and inequality of what we have to carry and what we have to face, seemingly alone, although we never are alone.
Practices of equalization, practices of synchronization, of reactivating the frequency of trauma so that all may resonate with it and collectively bring it back down to a state of calm and peace. Trauma is a membrane blocked, trapped in a rigid frequency.
Resonance, so that we can all resonate with it. Vibrancy, not numbing down, not putting aside, not having it the blind spot, but bringing it with us into the space, addressing it together in awkward ways, being silent while it spreads and is being distributed.
Containers for the sharing of trauma. Trauma games, playing with trauma, playing with our experiences of trauma, taking turns to exchange our traumas and holding that space so that one may see our trauma resonate in another, and through that truly feel what has become blocked, to see how the membrane should vibrate through the mirror.
Breathing, dancing, screaming, laughing, moving together, crying together. Finding ways of expression that are beyond individual means of words and individual capability and capacity to hold. Stop holding, spread, spill out into the collective, spill out into life.
State the trauma and shake it out. Trauma like a sick liquid inside one's vessel, a stagnating spirit which has to be shaken out, shaken until it spills over the edge and one is emptied and one can be refilled. State the trauma and shake it out, dance it out, move until you're free.
And stop calling it trauma. Realize that there is a crisis response that is strong within us if we connect on a collective level. and that we don't have to repeat again and again.
No longer stuck in deep time. Trauma as the intersection of present pain and the pain of deep time. Instead, seek bliss in the intersection of the bliss of deep time.